Hello and welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. On today's show, we just recently had an election in New Jersey. Who were the winners and losers, and what does it mean for 2020? We talked to one of the top political commentators in the state from Rowan University. Also on today's show, remember him? Don Guardian was a very popular mayor of Atlantic City. Is he ready to run again? We ask him. And what is the future of Airbnb in Jersey City now that they've lost at the ballot box? And the Battle of Trenton will be refought this month in the state's capital. We'll show you what the reenactment looks like. And now, our interview with Ben Dworkin, director of the Institute for Public Policy and Citizenship at Rowan University. We just had a statewide election, and if you look at the numbers, there's a very good chance that you did not participate. So what happened? Let's talk about that with Dr. Ben Dworkin, founding director of the Rowan Institute for Public Policy and Citizenship. Thanks so much for being here.
It's great to be back, Larry.
Were the numbers historically low for this one?
Expectedly low. That is about 25%. 1 out of every 4 registered voters in New Jersey came out to vote in this election. It's about what we expected, but we should compare that to where we expect to be next year in a presidential year. 75%, not 25%. We'll have 75 to 80% turnout in a presidential year. So this is very low.
When was the last time that we've had 75% in a presidential election? It usually runs about 60, right?
No, it will typically actually hit
in New Jersey?
In New Jersey, yeah, sure.
Because across the country they don't hit 75%.
Not in every place, but certainly here. And
Yeah.
I think in next year, when lots of people have opinions on this particular presidential election, lots at stake. So we're going to expect that kind of high turnout.
Yeah.
But that's just going to be in contrast to this very, very low turnout that we had recently.
What's interesting is that now there seems to be, it seemed like all the passion was on the Democratic side for next year's election. I still want to get back to the last election, but since we're talking about this, it seemed like all the passion was on the Democratic side. This impeachment process, and you tell me if I'm wrong, has started to stir some passions on the Republican side as well.
Absolutely, and we saw it actually affect, as a way of transitioning here, it actually affected these legislative elections that we just had.
Really?
Absolutely. There are 40 legislative districts around the state. Each one has about 220,000 people living them. In District 1 out of the 40, which is Cumberland County, Cape May County, that's where the Republicans won. They flipped in a special election for the state Senate. The Republican candidate knocked off the Democratic incumbent, and the Republican candidates for the 2 assembly seats in District 1 knocked off the 2 Democratic seats. In that district, where you have a lot of Republicans, that's a district that actually voted for Trump, even though they had Democrats representing them in the state legislature. The issue of impeachment calcified the partisanship. And when you had more Republicans than Democrats, it meant more Republicans came out. It meant they felt stronger. They weren't going to cross over. I'm Republican, but I like these kinds of Democrats. They weren't going to do that. They were going to vote Republican. It became an issue. Even the Senate candidates, the eventual winner, Michael Testa, and the incumbent, Bob Andrzejczak, these folks ended up having to give their opinion in the press about impeachment.
Let's keep jumping back and forth if we can, because Congressman Jeff Van Drew is an anomaly down there. He used to be a Republican. He switched over to be a Democrat because he had a clearer path to run for office. He was a state senator. Now he's a congressman. He's been in the national press because he has said that he's against the impeachment. He voted against the inquiry. It all kind of makes sense now. Does he look at his backed candidates losing in a Republican district and fear 2020?
I'm not sure he fears 2020. He was always going to have a competitive election in 2020.
Because there's conservatives and Republicans that back him down there.
That's true. And what we saw is that even these legislative candidates tried to run under the Van Drew name. They called themselves the Van Drew team because Jeff Van Drew, who had gone, as you said, from the state Senate to now Congress in 2018, Jeff Van Drew is by far the most popular politician in that area. Extremely high name recognition, very well entrenched.
Very charismatic, a dentist.
Very connected to his district. He is much more conservative, but he doesn't represent a very conservative, a very liberal district.
Right.
He represents a district that is in tune with him. So anyone who thinks that these kinds of victories in the legislative races means that they're going to have an easier time knocking off Jeff Van Drew, I think we'll have to rethink that proposition.
Let's stay on this topic for a second, and I know we were going to talk about the assembly, and I'll get back to that in a moment, but every time they talk on television about Democratic congressmen that are in Republican districts or swing districts, there's 5 of them in this state.
Yeah.
Are any of them in trouble? I mean, I know it's a year away, but does impeachment threaten any of them, or an impeachment vote at this point threaten any of them?
Again, impeachment simply hardens, I think, what we're seeing so far, given the news that's come out of Washington, is that impeachment makes everybody a little more tribal. Democrats feel stronger about being Democrat. Republicans feel stronger about being Republican. But in these districts that have flipped over the last 2 elections, like you said, we have about 5 of them out of the 12 congressional districts here in New Jersey. There are always going to be tough races. This is a map. We should understand the congressional map in New Jersey was gerrymandered specifically to create 6 Republican districts and 6 Democratic districts. Having said that, where we now stand is 11 Democrats and 1 Republican. These are Republican districts. There are going to be strong Republicans who are going to run under President Trump's banner, who are ready to run with the president at the top of the ticket.
Tom Kaine Jr. is already
Tom
announced.
Kaine Jr. is running a very aggressive race in District 7 against the incumbent and the new congressman, Tom Malinowski.
What was interesting after this last race is that Governor Murphy came out and almost declared a victory about it. And then, of course, Senate President Sweeney came out and said, what are you talking about? We lost seats. Who's right?
Both. Let me try and explain. Look, it was a good night for Republicans, and they've been long due. Republicans in this state haven't gone to sleep with a real big smile on their face since Chris Christie won re-election in 2013.
Yeah.
It's been a while before they had this kind of evening. Now, typically in the midterm of a first-term governor, the party of the governor will lose seats. That's what we saw here. The Democratic Party lost seats. And they lost seats in by far the most conservative district that could conceivably be.
So it wasn't unexpected.
Not unexpected. Not particularly hard to imagine given the nature of that district. And the fact is, Democrats down ballot certainly did win. So yes, Senate President Steve Sweeney is absolutely right. We lost seats. You can't get past that. No one should be jumping for joy. But Democrats took control of Somerset County for the first time in anybody's memory. They took control of the 8th biggest municipality in the state, Hamilton Township, outside of Trenton. There are any number of smaller victories that were there. And outside of this district, in District 1, where again, a very conservative Trump voting district, Democrats didn't lose any place else.
One last quick point. We're now in a lame duck session. And normally in a lame duck session, that's when some of the shady things happen. Should we be in fear of that?
It's less worrying about shady things than the big things happen. The things no one wanted to take a vote on before the election. The irony of lame duck is that 95% of the legislature is returning. Virtually nobody is late.
So they could still be held accountable for whatever they do.
But they are the furthest away from the next election. And so difficult issues that have been challenging over the past year, issues about driver's licenses for undocumented aliens, plastic bags, banning plastic bags like you would get at a supermarket, marijuana legalization. This is the time when a lot of those issues are going to be they're going to try and deal with
the marijuana they have to wait for the referendum, though, right?
I think where the plan is that they're going to put it on the ballot in 2020 as a constitutional amendment because they simply can't find the votes themselves to pass it legislatively. They're going to put it before the voters, and that we'll have it or not have it based on that.
All right, great. Always great to talk to you.
Thank you
I
so
really
much,
appreciate it. Dr. Ben Dworkin, founding director of the Rowan Institute for Public Policy and Citizenship. Jersey Matters continues right after this. Still to come on Jersey Matters, the former mayor of Atlantic City has a new job. We'll tell you what it is and if he wants to run for mayor again.